I closed my eyes and I mentally rehearsed literally just walking in the hospital hallway. That was it. I hadn't done it in a while and I just wanted to just see myself doing it. And I'm not saying as soon as I did that, I was like, all good to go. But what it did give me is like 1% more hope that actually, Maya, what if it is possible? What if everything that everyone's been saying, fine, they have their views, they have their opinions. But what if you can do it? And so every day, I just kept doing it. Obviously, you got a lot of time in hospital.
Today, we have got with us the inspirational Maya Raichoora. She is one of the UK's leading mental fitness experts and also a pro at visualization, which we're very excited to be talking about today because it has such power in terms of changing people's lives, and I know it's changed yours. So we want to start actually with cutting the BS on visualization and also manifestation, which gets chucked in the same kind of bucket. So can you let us know, what's the real deal? What's the science behind it? Why does it work? Why doesn't it work?
Yeah, I get this question a lot that people, I'll mention the word visualization and people are like, oh yeah, it's just another one of those manifestation, like woo-woo things. So what I will say is whether I believe in manifestation or not, visualization and manifestation are two different things. So the way I see it is manifestation is taking something in your mind and making it a reality. Fine. Visualization is a mental training tool that is grounded in the neuroscience of the brain, basically. And it's been around for decades. And so, when you look at any sports psychologists or elite athletes, they will use visualization as part of their training, for their performance, etc. Why do they use it? So visualization works because the brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's imagined. So in a little bit more detail, what that means is when we physically do something, so let's say you're physically running, certain neurons in your brain will fire. So there's an activity in your brain that gets activated. Now, if I were to just imagine myself running, so I'm mentally rehearsing what my legs are doing, what my hands are doing, literally feeling the sweat of me running, the same areas of the brain have been activated. And that's pretty cool when you think about it. Like, you haven't even done the activity and yet your brain thinks you have. And so what this then means is we can take that science and use it to our advantage. So we can then apply it to things like our performance, whether that is sports and fitness and, going to the gym and lifting heavier weights, but also your life. So it might be your relationships, it might be at work, public speaking, etc. And I think when a lot of people say to me, oh yeah, but when you are visualizing, you basically just manifest, then you bring that into your life. And I think if you're going to use visualization for your goals, then yeah, I'm not surprised that you may reach your goal faster or you may see opportunities you never would have. But the truth is, what's happening is you are just training your brain to be a different person. And if we just go one step further, there's a system in your brain called the RAS, and it's your reticular activating system. And what it essentially does, it's your brain's filter. And so let's say I have a goal of running a marathon. If every day I sit down and I visualize me not only running the marathon, but me then crossing that finish line, and I do it every day, and I'm not just wishfully hoping, what I'm doing is I'm showing my brain, this is my goal. Let's do everything we can to make it happen. So by changing that filter system, then your brain is going to try and look for things in life to do it. So let's say there is a gym or there's an opportunity to run, or let's say you don't want to do training today. Your brain will be like, no, you should go. So you can see how it can then change your mindset towards certain goals you have. So yeah.
on that, because I feel like a lot of people, or like how I would sometimes interpret that with the crossover of visualization and manifestation, is the fact that I can think about running all the time or crossing that line or getting to that point of doing a marathon. But let's say I actually go out and do the training, I'm not going to get further than a couple of miles. So as much as I can sit there and think about it, and that could be a useful exercise, it still has to be backed up with the actions that are going to elicit the result that you want.
Yeah. And you raise a really good point. And I am not going to sit here and suggest that we can go through our lives just visualizing and everything is going to be, all good. What I will say is they actually did an experiment where they took weightlifters and they had two groups. One was going into the gym and actually lifting the weights, and the other group were just visualizing lifting the weights. Now, the really fascinating thing was the group that didn't actually that didn't actually go and lift the weights physically, their muscles actually changed. Like, their muscle mass increased. So your body felt like it was actually going through the training. Not by the same percentage, but still a little bit.
That's something.
And what this shows is that actually if we combined mental rehearsal with the physical practice, you will perform better and be ahead of like 99% of people, because that combination is like, it's deadly. It's so good, because like you said, it doesn't mean you don't do the physical practice, but one thing people do forget is, how do you stay motivated towards those goals? How do you stay inspired? How do you stay disciplined? And that's where I think the mental training of life is just majorly neglected.
And that is a huge part in bodybuilding, by the way. Like, all the top bodybuilders will talk about a mind-muscle connection. And you can have two people who go and do the exact same workouts, but one of them is getting a completely different result. And it's very much down to the fact that they are like consciously and mindfully like training the muscle and trying to create as many sort of like neural pathways between the fact that like I'm training my chest and I'm thinking about my chest and I can feel my chest instead of just going through the motion of maybe doing like a chest press. So that, you know, there's definitely a lot to that, and you hear all you know, pro bodybuilders talk about that too.
Yeah, and even take an athlete who gets injured, like, even though you may physically not be able to do the sport or the practice, you can recover way faster and not lose your skill by implementing visualization. And they've seen this multiple times with like golfers, even bobsledders, which I think is really interesting, because the reason I like bobsledding is because of the G-force, they actually can't physically practice too many times a week, otherwise it's dangerous for their body. So they have to visualize, they have to have it as like a big part of their training, so that they keep the skill getting better, but they can't physically do it all the time, because you obviously, like, you know, you're shaking a lot of your body, that it's quite intense. Same with F1 drivers, you know, always being in that type of a speed is going to have a massive impact on your body, so they have to do the exact same thing, which is cool. Like, it's cool to have that tool with us.
Yeah. I think something that's really interesting that you said is your brain doesn't know the difference as well. And something that we often talk about with our clients is with your language that you use as well, your brain doesn't know the difference. And this is a really interesting crossover where if you're saying something negative about yourself, your brain doesn't know that that's just your thoughts.
Yeah.
It knows that it hears something negative, and that could be the same as if your boss said it or your partner said it. So all of this science is applicable to the kind of self-talk that has a big implication on the motivation and the following through to taking those actions as well.
Yeah, and because, like, if we look at it, your brain only really thinks in black and white, like positive, negative. So it's about what we feed it. And I think this is the interesting side, is that, so past the age, so when you're young, your brain's going to be like really changing a lot, right? Past the age of about 25, it gets way harder to really change the brain, which is possible. It requires an aggressive type of training. So just like how we try and, you know, build muscle in our body, so you have to do the reps, you have to create that resistance, you have to kind of like tear the muscle to build it up again. Yep. Same thing. The brain can change, and this is all about neuroplasticity, right? Your brain has the ability to change, but we have to give it the right, literally feed it the right thoughts, we have to give it the new beliefs, and we have to rewire it with things like visualization, better self-talk, and that is how you can then actually physically, but also mentally reshape the whole brain, which when you think about it, is so cool. Like, that is amazing. But it's only in the last decade that neuroscientists have actually shown that it's possible. And so it's kind of like still very new information when you think about it. But
So what do you see as, like, because that's like a huge thing when we look at making a sustainable change with our clients, the things that we focus on is, you know, the habits and the behaviors, the skills, but then last and most importantly, the beliefs. Because if they don't actually truly believe that they're now a fit and healthy person, they will naturally just revert back to their old identity. But making that change to shifting their beliefs for us has always been stacked off evidence. So the fact that they've been able to live and be a certain way for a set amount of time, like, they have that evidence now that can allow them to shape and change their beliefs to say, like, I am this new person, I have evidence to say, you know, otherwise. How do you, like, really go about helping people, like, change their beliefs?
So I guess I take it from a not a different point of view, but I obviously use the science of the mind here. I agree. Belief is a lot about the evidence we build in our life and our competence and our confidence in that. However, I think belief can also be thought of as like certainty, right? The certainties we have about certain things or whatever. Now, that belief is going to directly impact someone's potential. Like, do you believe you can actually do it? When you get into the gym or you go for that marathon, like, can you actually do it? That potential is going to affect your actions. So do you give 100% to your training? Are you the one finding a buddy to do this with and like signing up for that marathon, etc.? And then your actions are going to influence your results. So, if you do that, you are going to get better results. And then your results, which is that evidence building, will then again reaffirm those beliefs. Now, the thing is, a lot of us have negative beliefs that aren't going to serve us well, like, oh, I'm not good enough, or I don't know, it's going to take too long, or my body can't do it, etc. So then we, again, negatively impact the potential, actions, results. Now, a lot of people try and like go straight to the belief, and they're like, but you are good enough, or like just believe in yourself, like you can do it. That won't change much unless they actually every single day are saying it again and again, right?
Like, how do you get? Because that's like that is a common theme of a message on social media where it's like, well, you are enough, or you just need to like shout positive affirmations at yourself, and you got to tell yourself that you're beautiful. And as much as I would love that to be true, when we speak to so many clients, it's like they do not feel like that, like at all. And for someone to just say like you should just get up in the morning and just be able to say these things to yourself, it's like that's just not the reality that these people are living, and it's not like practical advice either.
So what would you...
So 2 things I would do. So if we look at that cycle again, I just explained, which is the belief, potential, action, results. This is where we can kind of trick our brain. What if we show our brain the results before they've happened? So we haven't run that marathon yet, no. But if we mentally rehearsed every single day that, okay, Maya, you are passing that finish line, you're doing it, what happens? You start impacting those beliefs, because you're building the competence in your brain, even though you haven't actually done it yet. Again, it doesn't know the difference. Now I get it. It's a bit like, oh, are we faking it till we make it? But my point of that is like, if you are building better beliefs, then that is so worth it. And so if you can mentally rehearse the results in advance, and at least maybe, we need at least 66 days to do this, your beliefs are going to change. Like they literally will. And I've seen it in my life, my clients, etc. That's one aspect. The second thing...
Sorry, is that very much like fake it till you become it instead of fake it till you make it? Because I think if you just say this is how you want to be, and you keep saying that and then acting in that way for a long enough period of time, you do become that person, even though in the beginning it can feel like this is weird, I don't actually believe what I'm saying. But if you just keep going through the process of doing, over time you do just become...
Yeah, and you're flexing those muscles to basically like, because at that point your brain's like, oh, but I have done this. Like I have run this marathon, even if you haven't. But it just means that then your belief is way more certain that you can actually do it. And so you can even pick it as like a tiny thing. Like let's say, I don't know, someone's coming on a podcast and they're super nervous. If you were to see the result in advance, being like, okay, Maya, you're sitting on that sofa, you're speaking, you're confident, etc., it means that when I'm here, my brain's already been there. So like I'm not nervous, I'm here, or I'm less nervous, in fact. I'm in that flow state, and I have the belief that actually I can do this because I have done it. And this is super effective, and that's why a lot of athletes will use it. Even before they've won, their races or matches, they are doing this to build that belief from now. And then the second thing is, like you said, on Instagram, we see all this like, you are good enough, or, I love myself, or believe in yourself. I think it's a bit of rubbish. And I tell you why. You can't get rid of those negative beliefs completely. And we actually shouldn't. We are human. But what we can do is, I see it like we've got two options, right? Think of it like speakers. I like thinking of your beliefs like speakers. Now, one speaker is quite loud, which is that I'm not good enough. Then you've got the other speaker, which is I am good enough. Our job is not to just like get rid of that one, but to make this a little bit quieter and make this one louder. And in your brain, what does that actually look like? You have 2 roads, two neural pathways. One, the one that you've been driving on, is saying, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, she's prettier than me. Then the other pathway is saying, no, I've got this, I can do it. I feel, unique and confident. And the point is, drive more on the belief that you want. But the point is, half of the time, we're not even aware of them. And so I like seeing it as speakers, because then rather than this like big job of like, just get rid of that belief, instead, see it as how can I quiet down that belief and make this one louder?
So my question is how? Because if some people's speaker is so ramped up in the negativity side of things, it's at 98%, maybe there's a 2% there of the positivity. How do you turn this down and turn that up?
So I think obviously like this really depends on the person, right? And a belief is going to be more deeper if it's more historical. So if you're young and whether it's your teachers, your parents have been saying certain things to you, it's going to be so ingrained in the brain. And if that's the case, that does require rewiring. It does. You have to be aggressive with that type of training, which is why these days people are like, oh yeah, psychedelics, things like that. I'm not a huge fan. I think we can actually do it all with our brain. I really do. Yes, it might take longer, but that's all that's happening, right? You are taking that belief, and that's why I'm super passionate about visualization, because you can actually rewire it. And I had beliefs in my life that ruined me. And
hang on, can you share what you mean by that?
So So let's think. When I was young, I was super confident, very bubbly, and I was training nationally for badminton. So like sport was a huge part of my life, very healthy. You're one of those people where people be like, oh, you're going to go super far, that sort of thing. Like you've got loads of potential. And I had that belief, like I did, and I was going to go far. And then when I was about, 15, I started developing symptoms where basically my stomach started hurting. I'd go to the loo and there'd be like blood and things like that. And at 15, it's like, okay, you just go to the doctor, you listen to what they say, and you take medication. Fine. And as time went on, it became a lot worse because I didn't really change anything in my life. I just kept being quite stressed and emotional, etc. And eventually, it just meant that I'd been in hospital maybe like 6 times. I'd been on steroids like every couple of months, which is really dangerous at that age. But the symptoms were like awful because you're going to the loo like maybe 30, 40 times a day, and it's just pure blood. And you are like screaming for your life because, well, I wasn't even screaming because I didn't have the energy to like cry or scream. And then, the pain of it is like razor blades in your gut. Like it's just, there's no relief in any way. You couldn't drink water. Like food was just out the question.
And were you just like on IV drips for? Like,
yeah,
there was a point I was like 17 and I was about 36 kilograms.
Wow.
Like,
so this went on for
so it went on for about 6.5 years. Because I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which is an inflammatory bowel disease, and there's no cure. There's just no cure. And they will put you on immunosuppressants, steroids, etc. So I was on about 64 tablets every day for about 2.5 years. Yeah, I'm still going to school, doing my GCSEs. Like no one knows as well. I'm doing it all in secret because it was such a shameful, I don't know, no one talks about pooing, right? So I'm a young girl and I'm having to deal with this every day. I just was like, it broke me. And so when I come to the beliefs, every single doctor, bear in mind, UK doctors, American, Indian, I traveled like the whole world to try and find someone to help me. And every single one said, Maya, I'm just so sorry. Like, you are going to be sick the rest of your life and there is no cure. So my belief was, right, Maya, you are going to be sick the rest of your life. Like, you can't walk again. You can't play badminton again. You can't live a normal life again. So all these beliefs, they were so strong in my mind because that is what I was told by everyone who we're meant to trust, right? Even like people close to me were like, yeah, Maya, we've got to accept it. So my brain was wired to believe that actually, no, I can't really recover from this. Like I will just have to, live my life in hospital or deal with it that way. And the first time I really saw my belief change was the one specifically about not being able to walk again. So I'd not walked for about 2 weeks in hospital, just like, I'd lost all kind of function because of the weakness as well. And then I started practicing mental rehearsal in hospital. And the first thing I did was Did
you get this from anyone, sorry?
Yeah, so a nurse, she walked into my room and she was like, she could tell I was mean. Like, I hated the world. I was so resentful. Like, even my sister would walk into the room and I'd just be like, Gal, like, I see you and I just, I hate it. I hate it. I was so bitter to the world. And this nurse came in and she was like, okay, like, you know, if you weren't in hospital, like, where would you be? And I was like, that's so rude because I'm obviously in hospital. Like, why, what a weird question. When she left, I kind of just tried it. I was like, okay, what would I want to be doing? And the first thing was walking. And so I closed my eyes and I mentally rehearsed, literally just walking in the hospital hallway. That was it. I hadn't done it in a while and I just wanted to just see myself doing it. And I'm not saying as soon as I did that, I was like, you know, all good to go. But what it did give me is like 1% more hope that actually, Maya, what if it is possible? What if everything that everyone's been saying, fine, they have their views, they have their opinions. But what if you can do it? And so every day, I just kept doing it. Obviously, you got a lot of time in hospital. So every 2 minutes, I would just like close my eyes, see myself walking. Then it would be like hiking. Then it might have been like running. And eventually, I did start doing it. Eventually, I was training my mind and body to go towards that, to be stronger and motivated to do that. And then we build the competence because then I was actually taking a few steps. And I was like, okay, we can do it. Bring in more visualization, bring in more walking. And that belief was rewired because I didn't walk first and then, you know, had the belief I could do it. I was like, Maya, show your mind and body that you want to do this and you can. And it went from there. And same things like being sick all my life or, you know, little things like even, you know, you're only worth it if you achieve X, Y, Z. All those beliefs I'm actively rewiring. Yeah. And I'm not saying they just go away, but these beliefs are way louder now that Maya, you are healthy and you are going to stay like that and you're only getting stronger. That's where I'm putting my brain. And it's incredibly powerful then, the results you can get from that.
I love what you said about saying, okay, well, you've got your opinion. That's nice. I can have my own opinion. And that's something that I always try to do and encourage my clients to do. You can't, well, in my experience, you can't just poo-poo something that your brain's been telling you for 10 years and say, I'm just not going to listen to that anymore. But you can say, okay, thank you for that, and just move on. And I think bringing self-awareness to hearing that even out loud and realizing that that's constantly on replay in your mind is such a powerful first step. And just realizing you don't actually have to listen to it. It can be there replaying, but you can say, okay, thank you, and just carry on with your day. And it sounds like that was a moment that actually happened in real life where you were all these doctors saying this stuff to you and you realize you don't have to have the same opinion.
No, and actually, like, obviously for me, my beliefs came from there. But, you know, I've met a lot of specifically women, actually, who we put ourselves down massively, or we think we're really fat and ugly and things like that. And these beliefs, like, I think you're right. First, you've got to be aware of them. Second, the thing I found really fascinating is we get very comfortable in our beliefs. Like, it's like a bit of a comfort blanket. They're familiar, we know how they feel, and we can become a little bit of a victim. And it's like, okay, I can, you know, hide in it. And one of the questions I ask a lot of people is like, do you actually want to get like better? Or do you actually want to lose weight? And often, well, they're like, yeah, well, obviously. But I'm like, really? Because ultimately, it's a choice. A belief is also a choice. Yes, you've got the wiring, you've got the neurological aspect of it and the environment, all of that. But ultimately, it is a choice. You get to choose in this moment, right, from now on, I am going to be good enough. And it's not going to be an easy road, but that's where you have to initially make that choice that you actually want it. Like, you want it for yourself.
Is it that, like, and I'm huge on, like, personal responsibility, but is it that easy sometimes? Because sometimes it's not your environment just like pre-programming the way you are and the way you think and the way you feel. Like, you know, if you've got like a family who has the same set of beliefs, people you spend time around, colleagues, similar set of beliefs, and then like what you watch on social media, same sort of set of beliefs, because it's just the algorithm is just feeding you more of what you want to see. So you're just constantly getting this confirmation bias.
Yeah.
So, you know, and I think this is sometimes where you have like that choice of free will. Like, is it just that easy to just choose? Like, I do believe that myself, but is that because I have evidence and confidence to say, well, when I have thought that in the past, I can will things into existence or change my beliefs, versus for some other people, if they haven't got that evidence behind them, they can just almost keep falling victim to that set of beliefs.
I don't think it's easy. I think changing beliefs is one of the hardest things to do, probably more than like, you know, us changing the muscles in our body. But I guess my answer to that is like, you also have to ask yourself, is it riskier for you to stay where you are right now with those beliefs, or is it actually riskier to just go for it. See what life can be like when it's not like that. And look, I'm not saying it is easy. And that's why you need the combination of like that self-awareness, being like, what are the beliefs? Where have they come from? That is a big question. Where have they come from? But sometimes like if they've come from our parents, there's not much we can do about it, right? And at that point, it's like, okay, I get it has come from my mum or my dad because that's how they grew up. Now I need to decide, do I want to continue with that belief or am I going to try and change it?
Yeah.
And then I think that's where then that reps come in, where you are then really rewiring the brain. And look, like I still get beliefs sometimes that are like, I'm not good enough, or Maya, like, you know, you shouldn't have done that. I still get them. But my point is, am I going to feed them constantly, or can I still act in accordance to my character and actually let that speaker be the one that's louder for me? So it's not that I don't have doubt or fear, but my courage and my confidence is louder for me.
Yeah.
I think it also comes down to curiosity, because there's a reason that belief reared its head in that moment.
Yeah.
So if you can treat it with curiosity rather than listen to everything it says and say, well, why do you think I'm not good enough? What have I done that doesn't align with something within me that's made this belief come out? That journey of curiosity it in turn will help turn down that volume.
Yeah. And there's two practical things that I made up one of them. The other one I think is quite like common, but people forget about it. So whenever you have these like bad thoughts or bad beliefs about yourself, there's two things I always do. One, just ask yourself, like, what would you say to your best friend? So let's say you do have a belief that's like, oh, I don't know, Maya, you're so like fat and ugly or something. Like if your best friend came to you and said that, what would you say to them? And so often, what we would say to ourselves is very different to what we're going to say to our best friend,
We'll
right?
have our own worst enemies.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So always ask yourself, right, what would I say to my best friend? The second one, for people who are a little bit more like logical, I call it the courtroom method. And I was actually watching Suits one day and I was like, right, this is such a cool idea. That like, take your belief to court. Put that thought on the stand, right? And from a very objective point of view, be like, okay, is there evidence in my life that says I am fat and ugly? If so, fine, let me look at it. What is it? Most of the time, there's not going to be much evidence because a lot of our beliefs are quite irrational. But we literally look at it from an objective point of view, kind of like from, you know, what are they called? Like defense and what's the other one?
The opposition.
Yeah,
Is it
attack, whatever it is. Like those two people, right?
Like netball.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, but you actually do it from both sides,
Yeah.
and actually that can help people to just rationalize
Yeah.
what the belief is. So those two practical things to do are really helpful. They, you know, different people will like different ones, but they're very, very useful just in the moment even. You know, and I literally used it like yesterday because I needed it as well. And that's cool. Like it's just part of your tool bank that you can take out and use.
The other one that I love that's similar to that is, especially for a lot of our clients that have got young kids,
Yeah.
would you say this about yourself in front of your child? Because a lot of the time, what would you say to your best friend? People are like, well, obviously I wouldn't say that. But that doesn't change what they say to themselves or help them like realize that's not really maybe something that I should say because it's not personal to them.
Yeah.
And that influence of like, they know how important words are to their children's development and they know that they're sponges. And so it's easier. I was saying this earlier, didn't I? About like, now I've got a child. I feel so responsible for everything I say to him and how I say it and how I respond to him. That if you ask yourself, would I say that to him or would I say it in front of him? It's a whole different level of awareness. You're almost like on your best modeling behavior as a parent, or, you know, you might want to be compared to when you're in your own head. No one's policing those thoughts. If you just put your little person inside your head, can be really helpful.
Yeah.
Are you ready to lose 30 to 60 pounds in under 6 months without restrictive diets, countless hours exercising, or any guesswork? Well, we help women over 30 do exactly that. Lose weight guaranteed. And 5 to 10 pounds a month is the average weight loss. And that's not a cherry pick statistic. That is the average. Your weight loss results are 100% guaranteed. You will lose unwanted body fat. So apply at bodysmartfitness.com. That's bodysmartfitness.com, but only if you're a woman over 30 and want to lose 30 to 60 pounds.
My thing here to just, and I guess it's like a through line I'm hearing, like multiple people we've spoken to, and also me just trying to figure out how to help more people is, it tends to be, because I had a similar situation. I had a client who had a 2-year-old and she caught herself saying negative stuff in front of the mirror, and that become the driver. Like,
Okay.
this can't be me. I can't let my little girl hear what I'm saying about myself, and that like the necessity went high enough for her to change. But again, there was that like breaking moment to an extent, and maybe for yourself, like in hospital, you're at that moment where you are seeking answers because you're in a state of necessity to find another way out. And that always seems to be like when somebody goes through making a massive change, they're at that like that breaking point, they're at that like, you know, I'm as low as it can get, the only way is up. And it's like, you know, people are really, really suffering. And then maybe feel like on the flip side, you've got maybe people like athletes, like you've mentioned, who are at the top. So they're looking to just optimize the game in every way. They do believe they can do it. They do want to visualize because everything's going to give you that mental edge. But it's more those like people who are in that comfortable but not so comfortable middle. Like I'm always trying to figure out like how do you get those people to raise that level of necessity, because it's I think maybe people haven't got clarity on what it is that they want, and then because of that, like it's bad but it's not bad enough, or it's good but it's not good enough. You know, it's just like this weird middle ground where it's like, how do you get out of that? Because it almost just feels like, oh, to make a change or to really push things forward, there tends to have to be like a bigger force pushing somebody to take that first step or first couple of steps.
You are right. And I think about this a lot because I get frustrated that, you know, we only really choose to like, make change or, I don't know, go to therapy or train our minds once we're like really unhappy or unwell or really anxious. And that's when we choose to actually make change. I think there's a part of me as well that like, I think we focus a lot as a society on like what motivates us. But what I've learned in my time just working with people and coaching, etc., I think purpose is a more empowering thing to explore with people. And just like you said about like, you know, your client with the kid, right? Mm-hmm. It's a new type of purpose. I wouldn't say like, you know, the kid is going to be the only motivation. Motivation seems a little bit harsh. What is the wider purpose here? And like, the thing is, I even told myself, right, that like when I built this company, I was like, I'm not going to talk to the people who don't have even that 1% curiosity to just be better. And the truth is, as humans, we are wired to just want a bit of progress. That is what makes us human. It doesn't mean we're going for like golds and, you know, going for the Olympics, but just a little bit of progress. And you'll see that humans become very stuck and idle when they aren't making progress in any areas of their life. If you have someone who's not doing very good at their career, but they've got a new relationship and they're like, you know, they'll be fine. But it's when you don't feel that progress in any area, that's when you're like, oh my gosh, you know, where do I go kind of thing. And you do raise a good point that actually, like, I do believe that every human does have goals, does have a purpose or purposes, but it's about asking the right questions. Like, what do you want? And don't wait till you're 60 to then ask that question. Like, ask it now, whatever age you're at. How do you want to feel in life? No one ever asks themselves that. And, you know, it's such a simple question, but actually, and a lot of people say, yeah, I just want to feel happy. But I'm like, what does that mean?
Well, yeah, that's a very tough one. And it's also not practical to be happy all the time either.
No, I don't believe in happiness. I think like happiness is a fleeting emotion, just like sadness. So if your destination is to be happy, like it's actually impossible. And I think like, yes, if it's peace or contentment, that's fine. But happiness is just, it's an emotion. It's like, I'm not happy all the time and I don't want to be. It's really overrated. And I think because, again, like you said, society gives you these beliefs that, you know, we shouldn't be chasing money or things like that. It's happiness. But like on whose terms and what does that mean for you specifically? And so I think asking those questions and being like, yeah, okay, what do you want? How do you want to feel in life? And why? Why is really key, because that's when we start really tapping into someone's purpose or what gives them joy or what's making them feel quite alive. And to
so just on that then, like we have an exercise where we try to ask clients to go like 5 whys deep, just to get something a bit more meaningful. But like, how do you help people really connect with their why?
You know, one of my favorite things to discuss with someone is when do you feel most alive? It's such a simple question, but when do you feel most alive? What are you doing? Some people, it's like, yeah, I'm hanging out with my kids. Some people, it's like, oh, it's when I'm on stage. Like for me, it's when I'm doing my event or I'm talking about visualization. Like I can be so tired and someone asks me a question about visualization, I'm there. And it shows me that that is more than just a passion for me. It is a purpose. Now, one thing I will say, people can get really insecure about like, oh, I don't have a purpose, or like, I don't feel this like pull to anything specifically. That's okay. If that is the case, I would suggest do more things, try more things, meet more people. That's when you'll start to learn, okay, I felt really alive here, or I felt super drained here. That's what's going to help you then navigate it. And I only know my purpose because I did go through a ridiculous, experience, and a really like life-threatening one. But I don't think you have to find your purpose just that way. I think it is about the small things we do often that give us those signals that we can then make into something bigger for ourselves.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that whole idea of like trying more new things is, if you don't actually know what your passion or purpose is, people do need to go and do that. But I think, again, another problem that people have is they quit too soon. So it's just like, we used to use the analogy of like, like a toddler when they're learning to walk, falls over 1,000 times, gets up 1,001. They just keep trying and try. They don't know how to quit. Versus, let's say you said you play badminton, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, let's say I want to go and play badminton. You go a couple of times in your 30s and you're not very good at badminton. I was like, well, no shit, you've been like 3 times. You know what I mean? Like, go 30 times and then make a decision to be like, is badminton for me or not? Because you'll actually start, after you get to session 20, 21, 22, you're starting to hit a few.
I mean, 30 is quite a lot.
Well, I mean, but I do, like, you think about if you took your kid to a new sport, they would you would take them for like a prolonged period.
Probably like a term, maybe like 12.
Okay, 12.
Have you heard of the quote Usain Bolt said really recently? I think it's, honestly, I have it on my door. So Usain Bolt said, I train 4 years to run 9 seconds of my life. And most people give up in 2 weeks. And where's our discipline gone? Like, it is so true. Especially like the younger generations, we do not know what true commitment is. Like, he literally trains 4 years to run these 9 seconds, and we can't stick to something for 2 weeks. We just can't. And it's true. Like, whether what the exact number is or how long you're going for it, I think it's about like, can you just actually commit to yourself and keep that promise to yourself that, it's not about going every single day. And I think this is the problem. People love going from 0 to 100. Always. It's like, okay, I'm going to go to the gym every single day. That is not how humans work. And the way I like to see it is like, a bit like driving a car. You've got reverse, you've got neutral, you've got drive. People are sometimes going to be in reverse. They're not doing very well. They're not very happy. Don't go straight to drive. You need to go to neutral first. Then you go to drive. Some people might be in neutral. They then can like go a bit more and like, they're actually about advancing. Here, we're going from retreat to neutral. And so just understanding where someone is at with their habits or, with, starting something new, you want to build your confidence by creating promises to yourself that you can keep. And when someone's feeling really like low self-esteem or like their belief is really low, I always give them this exercise to just like, right, let's make a promise right now that I'm going to compliment my partner. Do it today. And tell me you've done it. Why? I know it sounds a bit silly and it's not really to do with that. But actually, when you keep the promises you make to yourself, you feel good. It builds your integrity. And then you build, and then you can do the bigger ones. Like, okay, I'm going to work on this project, or I am going to lose XYZ in this amount of time. That's when you actually have the competence and the confidence to go for it.
It's self-belief, isn't it? You're building evidence to say like, hey, I do what I say I'm going to do. And that's often that a lot of people are falling short with now. Is like, I'm going to start the gym on Monday. Monday comes around, I don't do it. I'm going to start eating healthy. You do it for one meal, you give up. So you start to lose that belief of yourself and that self-trust because everything you keep saying, you break those promises. But often, I do believe you're completely right. People set the bar too high. They try to go to 100 instead of actually, your 100 would have been like 20. You know what I mean? And just going, hey, I'm going to commit to 2 gym workouts next week and be consistent with that for a month to get that belief behind you to say, hey, I can do this and I can be consistent, and then see if you can add in a little bit more. Yeah,
and I guess, I don't know if you guys find this, but like when you are working with your body and your mind, the results aren't like instant. Like you can't just, you don't get abs overnight. You actually have to play the long game, and you don't get that instant gratification. Yes, you feel good. You may, feel good when you leave the gym or when you've eaten healthy or when you've done a visualization. I 100% can vouch for that. However, real tangible change does take time. And because of the world we live in where, if you want something, Amazon will give it to you in about an hour. If you want to order some food, delivery, right? Or whatever it is. It's so quick. We live in a world where it's so quick that when we then have to do something that takes a little bit longer or it's a little bit more long term, we don't know how to handle it. We don't know what to do because we're like, but why aren't we seeing results? I get that so many times. Like, when will I see results? I'm like, however long it takes. That should be our mentality, right? Not how long is it going to take, however long it takes. Like, this is your body and your mind. It shouldn't even be a question. And it's a lifelong journey. Like, to me, it's so simple. Like, I do not have my life all together. Yes, I know I'm, one of the UK's leading mental fitness experts, but like, I go through stuff. I have mentally weak, times, days, weeks. And I think it's just that thing of like, that's the point. You're not going to be mentally strong all the time, but do you have the tools and the support and the understanding of your brain that you then know how to come out of it? That's what's key.
So there's a big one there, like a through line was like patience. Like, people don't have the patience to persist anymore or be consistent. Why and how do we change that? Because you're right, there's the society nowadays, we can get everything in a click of a button and it comes in seconds. So like, how do we have the patience to develop these skills that are going to enhance our lives, or commit to a gym workout or program for a prolonged period of time to see that change? Because that's ultimately, like, anything that you get that's good in life or is worth having, it takes time, reps and sets, and it takes a lot of time. But like, that isn't how everyone's almost acting and behaving nowadays because of the society that we live in.
No, yeah. I don't think there's an easy answer to this. I think definitely when someone is connected to something bigger than them, then it will help you with that long-term journey. But ultimately, I think it's an individual experience that you learn. Like, I've seen so many people, let's take it for, let's say, a diet. You do these like fad diets and yeah, you do lose weight and then you realize it comes back on and all of that. And real sustainable change will take time, but some humans have to go through it like 10 times before they actually make a change. And I was the same, right? Like, I was living my life very like, I was suppressing my emotions. I was not like mean, but I was judging people. I was just like stressful, all of these sort of things. I had to go through cycles and cycles of hospital stays for me to finally be like, Maya, sort this out. And yeah, whether it takes 10 years for you to sort this out, you've got to do it. And it has. Like, it has taken years of my life to actually recover from the medication as well as the disease. And if someone said to me, Maya, it's going to take you 6 years to recover, I would have been like, absolutely not. I'm not going to do that. No way.
But the time's going to pass anyway.
True, but it's just like, it's what are we doing with that, right? And what are we doing with our energy? Time is one thing, but where are we putting our energy? Because, things are going to always drain you and then you won't have the energy to do anything else, or they will inspire you and fill you up. And I think it's just that thing of patience is an individual thing. You either connect to your why or you've got to find that discipline to just keep going.
I think what's really interesting is when we talked about the fact that it takes people to get to rock bottom or be at peak performance, there's the people in the middle don't have an ROI that makes sense of change. So the payoff of putting all that work in, they
Should
can't
actually say ROIs, return on investment.
Yeah.
Just for anyone who doesn't know.
And that might be actually where visualization could be really powerful, because if they are just thinking, okay, well, I could put all this effort into making this change, but they can't even visualize what that would lead to because they've never experienced that. They don't even know if it's possible for them. That makes a lot of sense why you wouldn't then follow through and try and make a change.
Yeah. I think it's that thing of like, can you actually see the person you want to become or the results that you want? And so often, we focus so much on the speed of things, but I think direction is way more important. And if you look at some of the most successful people in the world, they will say the same thing to you. Direction is what keeps you navigating towards the thing. Speed, like, who cares if you're going faster than anyone? If you're going in the wrong place, like, then you just have to get there and then you have to go to another. It doesn't make sense. But again, because we live in this place where it's like, oh, I'm a billionaire at the age of 20. It's like, okay, but what does that mean? We're just focusing so much on speed, but direction is what's actually going to be your compass. Mm-hmm. That's what's going to inspire you. It's what's going to keep you motivated. Like, when I say to people that, yeah, like, I'm, building the future of mental fitness and the Nike of mental fitness, people are like, okay, but I have had what that looks like in my mind for like 4 years now. I'm not there yet, but I know it. It's the direction I'm going in. May not look exactly like that, but it is the thing that every day I wake up, I visualize it, and I'm like, this is what my goals and my actions are going to be aligned to. And that is super fun. And everyone has that. Everyone has that. It can be starting a family. It can be, you know, running somewhere, hiking somewhere. Like there was a point where my only goal was to just walk again. Just to walk. That is it. That was all I was asking for. And now it's obviously a different thing, which I'm grateful for. But we all have goals, no matter what our situation is. And that is just an innate human aspect of us.
But I think it's very human as well to want to put a deadline on things and want to have a timeline and want to achieve. Maybe not all humans, maybe it's a certain personality type. But I personally find when I do that, I do not do as well as when I focus just on moving in the right direction. And I think it's this fine line, particularly with the work that we do, where people have this goal in their mind that they've been wanting to achieve for so long that you almost do want to get them there in a certain timeline because you want them to see you can do this and not lose hope along the way. But equally, it is so much more successful when it is a journey that doesn't have an end point. So where do you find the balance with it? Because I'm sure for your success, you've had to say, right, for me to build my business, I need to do this by this point, this by this point.
So I like to use the goal setting like technique that Michael Phelps uses, which is that he has his like visionary goal, which for him was change the face of swimming. So for me, it's build the Nike of mental fitness or the future of mental fitness. Then he has his more long-term goals. So that is, okay, I've got 4 years and I need to, you know, compete in the Olympics, etc. And I want to win the Olympics, or I want to compete in 10 international competitions and win X of them, right? So these are your more longer term goals. So for me, mine's not necessarily 4 years. Mine's going to be like, okay, in this year, I want to do, so this year, for example, my long-term goals was I want to run 12 events, one a month, and I want to launch the online platform. Okay, that is my yearly goal. That's my more long-term one. Then it's your immediate goals of like, okay, so every day, what am I going to do? So for Phelps, it was like, right, every day when I'm training, I need to get this time. And that was his little progress in his everyday bits. Then he had his middle ones and then the bigger one. Now, why that's useful is because we should all still have that bigger one. We should all have that visionary one that actually is just exciting. It's your North Star. But then what will keep us kind of on track and keep that gratification and that kind of progress going, go for your immediate goals, which is just, it could just literally be like, you know, I want to attend or I want to go to 3 gym workouts this week. Fine. And then you have your longer term ones, which is like, right, at this point, I want it to be part of my lifestyle, or within 6 months, I want to be doing X. And that's okay. And the key, which I always tell people, because this question, but what if I don't get there? Or like, what if I don't get those results? Truth is, it's not really about that. It's actually about the person you become on the way. And there is no doubt that if you are putting your mind to something and you're working on yourself in whatever regard that is, you are going to become a better person in some way. And so just having that as well in your awareness of like, who have I become? And yeah, we may not get that particular goal, but you're going to have got way more further if you hadn't have gone for that in the first place. And I actually think we think too small these days. We really think too small. We don't dream big. We're so scared to just dream. And you know, with your kid, you may see that they're thinking about things that are like huge, but it's us that are like, no, you won't be able to do that. You won't be able to be an astronaut. You can't do that. Whether they can or can't, why should we be, you know, shutting down that part of our imagination and our brain? Like, we have to relearn how to find that again.
I think what you said that was really key was the individual little goals, you called them.
Yeah.
I would actually say they were more actions. So like, show up to training and get this time. Go to your 3 gym workouts.
Yeah.
And if you are taking action, like you said, every single week, every single day, you will change. You might not get the result that you thought you were going to get, but you will get a result and you will be a better person. And whether that's being an astronaut, like, okay, take the action of going and reading every book that any astronaut has ever read. You don't have to say, well, you're not going to reach that goal, but you can say, let's just take all the actions and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I think it's having your mind open. It almost kind of lines up with that manifestation theory, which is not, I know is not the same as visualization, but it's allowing your goal to have space to bloom and to let anything that you're doing have the potential to lead in that direction.
I think with the manifestation of visualization, because you know, when The Secret came out, I don't know, however long ago, and people used to talk about it all the time, like, oh, I'm just going to will and wish my way into like this success or existence, or I'm just going to wish that I have £1 million or whatever it is. And it's like, I used to like really just like, it used to just like repulse me to an extent, because I was just like, what the hell? I was like, what is this bullshit? But then as I've got further along, I'm like, oh no, actually having like clarity on what your goals and thinking about what your goals are going to be, and then taking actions towards your goals and thinking about your goals. It's like, it's not surprising that you start to make steps towards that bigger picture, and then that thing that was that you visualized or you manifested, everything that you were doing day to day, week to week, was actually just moving you closer towards it. And I think as long as you are doing the work and taking the actions and the steps, you do start to move towards something that you maybe have manifested. It's like the whole idea, like, it's easy to spot a yellow car when you're looking for a yellow car.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, if all you do all the time is think about that end goal that you want to get to, like, don't be surprised. And like, I think you're right with the patient side of things. In a decade, if you get there, you know what I mean? Like, that's like, I think Musk has said it, like, most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in a decade. And sometimes it is just having more of a zoomed out approach of like things, like good things take time.
But that's when, if what you're trying to achieve is value driven and it's your inner fire, the timeline doesn't really matter. So for example, like getting back to training after having Nate, I was like, okay, I want to get back to training. And it was slow. You know, it took me like a year to pick a barbell up. But at no point was I like, I need to be able to do a clean and press by 6 months. Like, putting that pressure on myself wasn't helpful in any way. But knowing like my long-term vision of my life has fitness in it, and I will get there by just taking these actions every week. It worked.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think when you can look at certain things like health and like marriage, and there's all these things that you're playing like an infinite game. It's not a finite game that you're trying to just get healthy for summer or get fit for summer, you know, trying to get married for 5 years, or, you know, you're trying to play these games on a longer horizon, or at least that's sort of the goal of them. But I just think, like, probably when I speak to a lot of people though, they're just not sure. Like, I think most people just don't know what they want. Like, they haven't got that clarity of like, what is it I actually want? Maybe they've got an idea, but sometimes if you actually go levels deeper with people, they'll just tell you what they think you want to hear. Oh, I just want to make a lot of money and have a big house, and, you know, it's like very like surface level sometimes. And I like, for me, I've always tried to go like, why? Like, why do you want that house? You know, and when you get something else, like, okay, well, is that house really going to give you what you're saying? And when you're trying to go like levels deeper and why, but I do think a lot of people just haven't spent the time to fully grasp like what it is they want. And I think that's where you can feel like quite lost in your day-to-day actions.
Yeah, and that is a journey. And like, you know, whenever I speak to people, that is the first question I will ask them. It's just like, what do you want? And for some reason, it's like the question that stumps everyone, because they're like, whoa, like, what do you mean? And you can be 60 and I ask you that question, or you can be 20 and I ask you that question. And I don't think it's just something you ask yourself, like, you know, once a year. Keep reminding yourself, like, is this what I want? Is this what I want? It's a bit like in a relationship, you know, let's say you're going out with someone and you do ask yourself, okay, but is this what I want? Like, is this the kind of relation I want? Do it with your own life. Do it with your goals. Do it with, like the reasons behind your goals as well. Like, so when I started my business, I got really consumed by other entrepreneurs making more money than me. I was like, okay, I need to, like, you know, do X, Y, Z. And I was like, okay, but Maya, is this what you want? And I, like, honestly, yes, I want enough money to live, but I'm not driven by money. And what I wanted was to actually help more people. And it's interesting because, like, I got advised to, if you wanted to make more money, do like an online course and just sell it. So I was like, okay, let's build this course. But then I was like, yeah, but what I love to do and what I want to do is bring people together physically. So then I was like, screw that. I want to do events, just one a month. And you know what? Like, because it's what I actually wanted and I knew why, because I wanted to make more impact. I wanted to have that impact more impactful. That doesn't make sense, but more.
In person.
Yeah, exactly. And it's great because, like, I put all my energy and effort towards it. And, like, sure, I probably would have done the course, but I just know that I would have been quite sad doing it. So it's just that thing. Always ask yourself, yeah, like, what do I want? And it's not having desires isn't like a bad thing to do. I think a lot of the time, you know, if you look at very like philosophical and like spiritual people, they'll say like, don't desire anything. But we live in a world where, like, it's good to have goals. It's good to have things that you want.
But also, as long as you know what the desire comes from.
Yeah, exactly. It's the motivation. Fine. Yeah, it is.
Because if the desire is there for a good reason, like you want to impact people, you want to help people, that's not something to be ashamed of or turn away from.
But even if your desire is selfish, I don't mind that either. And something I've learned recently is there's a great philosopher called Thomas Aquinas, and he talks about the 4 selfish human drivers: money, fame, power, pleasure. Every single person is driven by at least one of these. You have a dominant driver. And his point was like, let's not be scared of it. Like, yes, you know, someone who's driven by like loads of power and then they become like president and they do bad stuff, that's not great. But if we understand, yeah, like power is important to me or fame is important to me, it's not something to be ashamed of either. But there's a line where it becomes a negative, and then there's a line where it actually will help you be more successful. And so his point was that like, it's like an elephant in the room, right? No one wants to talk about it. But yeah, we're still okay to be driven by those sort of things as long as you're doing it for a good reason as well. So you can have that combination. But I just really like that idea because, you know, it's important to accept the things you are driven by. Like, it's like some of my friends are just so driven by money, and it used to like repel me. I just didn't get it. But fine, that's what they're driven by. As long as they're doing good stuff for the world, cool. Like, that's okay. So I think it's about, yeah, really understanding your values, your wants, and ultimately who you want to be in this world.
And when it comes to like what you want, there is so much noise, like we've said, from all around us, social media, parents, peers, that are influencing what we want. How do you tune out the noise? Because like you said, you were advised to do one thing and then went, actually, no, I'm going to do my thing. That's a very bold decision to make. And it's great that you had the confidence to do it. But how do you have that inner compass to say, thanks, but no thanks?
You've got to spend time on your own.
That's great advice, actually,
You've got
without
to.
a phone.
Yeah, without a phone, no TV. Like, have you heard of the electric shock experiment?
No.
So they basically took 2 groups, men and women, and they put them in a room, and they said, you just have to sit here for 15 minutes just with your thoughts in solitude, or you can electric shock yourself and we'll take you out. Now, 2/3 of men electric shock themselves. One guy...
Sorry, it's true
crazy.
and stupid.
But what's crazy is one guy did it 109 times because he just could not sit with his own thoughts. Now, for women, it was about 1/3, fine. But like, what it showed is that we are so either busy, our thoughts are so busy, we're scared to actually like hear what our thoughts are saying, that when we actually do take some time to just be on our own, we really struggle with it. We would rather electric shock ourselves than sit for 15 minutes with our own thoughts. Like, just think about that. We would rather shock our skin rather than just sitting for 15 minutes. Now, I get it. Spending time alone is not always the nicest thing. It you know, for lots going on, it can, you know, feel quite consuming, etc. Make it fun. So I go on a solo date every single month. Whether I just eat in a restaurant on my own, maybe I go traveling on my own just for like a day. Sometimes like I will just go for a walk on my own, but no music, nothing. I'm just with me. So spend time with yourself like you would spend time with a friend or a romantic partner that you're just getting to know. And when you do that, you start learning, oh, but Maya, I don't like this, or I do like this. And the thing that really came to me is when I started spending time on my own, then when I was in a group situation, I realized like I wasn't actually having fun anymore because I'd spent enough time with myself knowing what my values were and what did actually give me joy that then I was like, this just doesn't feed me. And so even when it comes to like goals, wants, things like that, you'll learn more and you'll learn that inner compass by just spending a bit of time on your own. And it can be fun. Initially, it might be a bit uncomfortable or hard. That's one aspect. Then I do really believe that, you know, yes, sitting down alone with your thoughts, whether you are meditating, whether you are using visualization as well, it is a game changer because you learn to control your mind. And I always say to people that your mind is a puppy. If you do not train it, it will shit all over you and your life. And that is just the truth because we have to train it. And the only way to do that is to take time on our own to be like, what is actually going on? Because otherwise, yeah, our parents' thoughts are there, your teachers, social media, all of that is all there. And so, yeah, you've got to spend time on your own.
Yeah, and I think a good way to start with that, because a whole day out is a lot if you're not used to it, is just going for a walk without your phone.
Yeah.
And that even, I am a big proponent of having time alone and meditating and, you know, thinking about my thoughts. But even I now am in the bad habit of, if I go for a walk, I'll just check my emails because I'm so busy. I'm like, oh, this is 20 minutes where I could just do this. And when I try to not, it's really hard because it's become a habit. And so even if you are listening and you think, well, I hate the idea of going for dinner alone.
Yeah.
Just go for a 50-minute walk around the block without your phone. I mean, I'm not going to say no emergency is ever going to happen. You won't need your phone. But people managed for a long time without phones and went for walks and they were fine. Or at least put it in do not disturb mode or whatever you need to do so that you are not actively engaging with it.
Yeah, and I think, look, we are very connected and social beings, but I truly believe that you cannot really connect with someone unless you are connected with yourself. And I know that sounds so cliche, but it is just true. Because if you don't know who you are or who you want to be, how do you know how to show up in your other relationships? And I just think knowing yourself is the best thing to study. It really is. And no one can do it but you. Like, you actually can't really get advice on that or get coached on it. Ultimately, you've got to do it. Like, it's your relationship. And if you treat it like that, you'll learn a lot. And I'm still learning, right? I'm changing, so I'm learning different things that I want.
That's a really important point, actually, is that what you want and what you value and all of this stuff we're talking about isn't fixed.
No.
You have seasons, don't you? You have seasons of life and things change like considerably. And there's a lot of things that you can have that are like big perspective checks as well that sometimes force people to change. I think COVID was a big perspective check for a lot of people. Typically, you know, the actual gift of someone you know dying is like a massive perspective. You know what I mean? You have, like, anytime you've been to like a funeral or someone you know has died, the next couple of weeks you drive more slowly, you're more patient with other people, you're more calm, and it's like it's giving you that, like, it's a gift of perspective of what's happened, of like life is fragile, like it could end at any point, like all these things I'm worrying about that important, what do I care about? You start asking these bigger questions. But it's, again, I think always trying to not let it happen, like COVID needs to happen to force people to change, or that massive rock bottom needs to happen. Like, can you just go for a walk for an hour and just start to get clear on like your thoughts and what you want, and start, like, as a byproduct of that, start taking the steps to like a, again, not a happier life, I would say a more peaceful life. That's been a big like North Star for me. I had a whole like enjoy the process, be happy. I had that for years, and I switched it to just being at peace, a piece of the good, the bad, and everything else in between. And that's been like such a stronger North Star, because if it's a bad day, I'm like, it's a bad day. I can laugh about it, instead of always being at a deficit, expecting it needs to be great or good all the time.
Well, it's like, I think we should view ourselves as the sky, and then, you know, sometimes it will rain, sometimes it's sunny, and that will be, you know, you're quite happy and joyful. Sometimes it will rain and you'll be sad, or there'll be thunder and it's anger. But if you remember that you are still the sky, that like that is your grounding and that you are in control of, emotions come and go, but that's where the peace lies. And I think that's really important, rather than trying to be sunny all the time, which is actually hard to maintain. You be the sky, which is that like grounding and that constant. And then,
hey, sorry to interrupt, but if you didn't already know, we help women over 30 lose 30 to 60 pounds in under 6 months without restrictive diets, countless hours exercising, or any guesswork. Now, we do that through our world-class one-on-one personalized coaching. And if you qualify, we actually guarantee that you'll see results. And yes, we are that good. Now, if you'd like to find out more, you can click the link in the show notes or go over to bodysmartfitness.com.
You think that's got blurred with mental health nowadays? Because, you know, like if you were to go, I think I heard Simon Sinek talk about this, like if you go to the gym and you go one day and you're like, oh, you don't have your best workout, but you still show up, you get it done, and you're like, oh, maybe I'm a bit tired, or that wasn't, it didn't hit no PBs or whatever else. And you just kind of expect it, like it happens. You've been training for long enough, like not every day is the best day, but showing up and being consistent is the most important. But then some people wake up and it's like, you feel more depressed or you're more anxious. And it's like, well, yeah, like it happens. That's life, isn't it? Like not every day is going to be sunshine and rainbows. And sometimes those feelings can actually help, like actually being a little bit anxious sometimes when you're doing a bit of work actually allows you to remember more and do more. It pushes you and drives you. Now, being anxious all the time and having chronic anxiety, not great. But again, like just because you feel a bit anxious before you maybe start a task isn't necessarily like a bad thing.
human.
Yeah, it's human.
It's also your emotions are there to serve a purpose. I think of them as signals. So if you're anxious, it's telling you something. It's not, oh, I shouldn't be anxious, it should go away. It's, well, what is it trying to tell me? Because it's there to help you navigate life. And that's the same with feeling sad, feeling, I don't know, jealous, or like any of these things that we label negative emotions. They are there as a kind of like flag to bring your attention to something. And if you try and push them away or ignore them or say they shouldn't be there, you're missing out on finding out more who you are and also being able to develop better ways to deal with that kind of situation or a new kind of perspective on something. So if you do have one of those days, you wake up not feeling great, again, get curious. Like that's your invitation to see what's going on under the hood.
Yeah. And I think like, it's hard. I think emotions, like I'm a very emotional being and I feel very deeply. And I think when I was young, I never knew how to express that. And so did just suppress a lot of it, which is actually one of the biggest reasons I got the disease in the first place. Like, you know, it was literally the source of so much. And now if I look at it today, yeah, emotions are energy in motion, right? They can be seen as data rather than directors. So they don't have to like, you know, if you wake up feeling a bit anxious, it doesn't mean the rest of your day has to be like awful, but use it as a bit of data to be like, okay, what is on my mind or what's going on at the moment? And what do you need to tune into? And yeah, but one thing I will say is emotions are not easy. And, you know, we are such experts at suppressing them. We drink them away, we work them away, we literally go to the gym to not feel some of our emotions, right? But what's important is, are you doing the emotional work with everything else? And I'm not saying you can't go out and have fun and have an escape. Like sometimes we do need that. But if you're constantly escaping things, it's just going to get more suppressed, more suppressed, more suppressed. And that's why we get breakdowns. That's why we then have these massive episodes where like we can't control things. It's why we then get unwell and get chronic illnesses. Like, it's, to me, it's such a, you know, the UK is at one of the highest countries of chronic illnesses. Why? Because yes, food, but also look at our lifestyles, look at what we are running from and the lack of awareness we have about our minds and bodies. So like, I am not surprised. And actually, if my doctor had just asked me, Maya, are you stressed? Rather than just giving me some pills, I think I would have been in such a different position, really a different position. Mm-hmm. You know, it's what is going on here and here that is also just never really spoken about enough.
So can we talk about mental fitness in terms of how you define it then? Because it does sound like everything we've covered is one of the skills maybe that you need to have mental fitness.
Yeah. So, okay. So mental health is a state of being. Everyone has it, right? You have one, I have one. Can be good, bad, middle, etc. It's a bit like physical health, right? So if you've got a body, you've got a physical health. Now, being mentally fit is, are you actively doing things and training your mind to maintain a good mental health? So I like using physical fitness. So you're only physically fit if you are going to the gym or you're lifting weights or maybe you're practicing dance or yoga. That's when you are physically fit, right? So that will help you maintain a good physical health. In the same way, what are you doing to actually train your brain? Are you practicing visualization? Are you speaking to different people? Are you meditating? That is what's going to help you maintain a positive mental health. And it's preventative as well as reactive. So yes, some people, will go to the gym if they're obese and, they've been told that's part of their thing they need to do. And sometimes we do need to get mentally fit because we are feeling anxious or things like that. But the way I see it is, fitness is this like elastic thing. At different times in your life, you're going to be fitter than not. Like right now, I'm not very mentally fit because I've got some stuff going on and I know I need to work on it. And the way I see it is it's like a Venn diagram. We've got thinking, feeling, and performing. That is what mental fitness is. So the way you think, your self-talk, your beliefs, your decision-making. Then you've got feeling, stress, emotions, confidence, disease, health, pain. How are you dealing with that? And then you've got performance. That is your goals, it's your habits, but also it's about your skills you might be learning or, things like that. So we've got think, feel, perform. They all interact with each other, but those are the three pillars that underpin mental fitness to me. And it's just like anything, right? So like in physical fitness, you've got consistency is key. So you need to do the reps. Same with your mind. Diet. I'm not talking about food here. I'm talking about what are you feeding it? What kind of content are you consuming? Or like, are you digesting like out of date thoughts and like sour ideas? Like that's not going to help you, right? Cardio. Cardio is how do you keep your brain moving? Like, even if you're doing like quiz shows or you're talking to different people, you're getting different perspectives, things like that. Then you've got rest, super key. And that is things like good sleep, meditation, holidays, etc. And then you've got weight training. And weight training is where I am super passionate about. It's like, how do you rip apart the muscle and the brain and then build it to be even better? And that is where visualization comes in, because it's the skill to really rewire it. So I see it as very parallel to physical fitness, but no one thinks like that.
So it makes total sense when you break it down like that. And I don't think anybody listening would disagree that that makes sense. But how would somebody integrate that into their daily life when they're already trying to look after their physical health, the rest of their life? How would you advise someone starts considering even their mental health?
Yeah, I think it's tiny things. The small things we do often will give us the big results, right? So even simply just going on your social media feed and unfollowing people that don't make you feel good. It's so simple. Same thing in terms of like rest. Rest is part of the work. It is not a reward for it. And it's so sad seeing people like say, no, I can't rest yet. I haven't done this. But look at the top performing people in our society. Athletes will rest because they know if they rest, they can be better. Why aren't we doing the same? Instead, we rest when we're at 0% battery rather than 50% battery. And really shifting that is important. And I'm not saying you need to go on loads more holidays. I'm saying take like 2 minutes of rest or, half an hour in your day.
I think that's actually really amazing because people have got whoops and everything now and they're like, body battery, need to rest. When do you do that with your brain?
Yeah, exactly. And look, I do think it's kind of impossible to switch off your brain. I don't really believe that. When people are like, in meditation, like, I can't switch off my brain. I'm like, that's the point. Impossible. Yeah, it's about...
This isn't what you're trying to achieve.
Exactly. You're observing the thoughts and you're just letting them go kind of thing. But look, even with something like visualization, I practice it on the tube or on the train. If I don't have time in the morning, I'll get in all you need is 7 to 10 minutes a day of visualization to really start rewiring the brain. And so when someone says to me, I don't have time, I'm like, I don't take that excuse, because you do. You can find 7 minutes of your day, whether it's on a commute. Obviously, don't do it when you're driving, but on the train or with your morning coffee, even do it with your kids. I don't mind. And what I've started to do now is before I actually get to the gym, before I do my run, I will visualize my run and how I want to, do it, etc. And then I get on. So, we can definitely find it. Excuses are excuses. You've got to choose if you want to do it.
So just like, if I'm like a beginner, like I've never done visualization before, and I can hear you talking, I'm like, that sounds great. I want to rewire my brain. I want to create new beliefs. I want to create a new identity in life. I want a better life. Like like I'm at ground zero. Like,
okay.
What is visualization?
I know it's the most annoying word, honestly.
Especially when you got a lisp.
Yeah.
Like how do you start and where do you start? Like from level one.
So visualization is the process of creating images, environments, and feelings in your mind before they happen. So if I say to you, think of a lemon, you might think of it, and that we're just connecting the mind and body there.
Oh, can you do the lemon, tasting the lemon?
Yes, yeah. So actually, this is a really good idea. So, if you just want to close your eyes for me. So, I want you to imagine that you are in your kitchen and that you open the fridge, and inside the fridge there is a segment of a lemon. So it's yellow, it's bright, it's already quite juicy, and I want you to hold it in your hand. Okay, so it's a bit cold. And I want you to take it closer to your face and just start smelling it. So start smelling the lemon. It's very fresh, quite fragrant. You can already smell it's a little bit sour. And now, very slowly, I want you to start squeezing, drop by drop, the juice of this lemon into your mouth. So just take the segment and really slowly, just drop by drop, every little bit of that juice, and it's very sour, very fragrant, quite cold, and your saliva might be going a little bit weird now. You're getting that tingly feeling. And I want you to keep squeezing this lemon. Really taste all that juice. Like taste it in your tongue, your mouth, everywhere. I want you to really feel it. It's very sour, very cold, very fragrant. Okay, good. And now just open your eyes for me. Okay, did you feel it a little bit in your mouth, etc.? Did you?
Yeah, my face like tingled.
Right. But are any of you actually holding a lemon? No.
Yeah.
And that in like 30 seconds, you can see how your brain really, really struggles to know if you are doing something physically or if you're just imagining it. Now, we've just done it with a lemon, fine, but like that's not that useful for people. This is where it gets interesting. Visualization for years has been about, the end result, the goal visualization, right? But there are 5 types. There are 5. And for some reason, no one is talking about it other than me. And I don't know why. But anyway, the first is outcome visualization, also known as global. Now, this is where you've got a goal and you are seeing the result in advance. So an athlete will use it to, see themselves winning or see themselves completing the race and, getting to number 1 in the world. I use it for Nike of mental fitness or where I want to be in a few years' time, etc. Then you've got process visualization. Process visualization is quite literally when you are taking a process, you are mentally rehearsing it to make it better, faster, or more efficient. So I'll take it to athletes again. So Phelps, he would see stroke by stroke what he was doing in the pool. He would even see, like, let's say his goggles filled up. Then what would he do? So this is process visualization where he's actually taking the process and going so granular and being like, okay, how are my arms feeling? So let's say you're on a run. You may even like feel the like sweat or the heaviness. And like, I will use process visualization for public speaking. So if I'm going on stage, how do I walk on? What are my hands doing? What am I saying? And what this does is it helps you then be more confident, but also in that flow state. So this is really good for your performance and your skills. Then we've got creative visualization. This is probably one of my favorites. Creative visualization is where you use your brain to basically create images, like it can be shapes, colors, things like that. And it's specifically great for emotions and managing emotions, as well as pain and disease. So I practiced creative visualization every day in hospital because the pain in my stomach didn't go with like morphine. It just was so intense. So what I used to do is I close my eyes and I would literally imagine what the pain looked like. And for me, it was piranhas. They were like eating at me and it was so painful. So what did I do? Using my mind, I killed them. I killed them all. I literally like shot them all. And I know it's a bit violent, but at that time, they were so strong that that's all I could do. And what it meant is that because again, the brain really doesn't know, and I was visualizing the pain as these piranhas, it helped my pain just that little bit. And I kept doing it, which then meant that my brain associated pain with these piranhas. So naturally, it started doing it on its own. And like even my clients today, like someone might have, let's say cancer, will do the same process. How are you going to kill these cancer cells? And you can be extremely creative with your mind to help you, especially with pain, disease. And then emotions, it's great to, calm down anxiety, or you feel an emotion. You put a shape to it, a color to it, and then it can calm it down and dissolve it. So that's creative visualization. 2 more to go. We then have negative visualization. Now, this was actually first spoken about in like Stoicism by like Seneca. And they spoke about when you visualize the worst case scenario, it will kind of like motivate you to not let it happen. Now, I don't teach this particular visualization to everyone because if your brain is already negatively wired,
it may go much worse.
Then you're literally doing it again and again. But Phelps is another good example, right? He would see what would go wrong in the race, which meant that when he was there, he was prepared. So for some people, if you're already like pretty mentally strong, I think it's good. And then lastly, you've got...
I actually use that quite a lot.
Really?
The negative one. Yeah. Just as a way of just like putting things in perspective sometimes.
Yes.
Like sometimes when it's like really bad, I'm like, has anyone in my family or friends died?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no. I'm like, is it that bad? No. And it's just sometimes a way of like trying to just ground in perspective, but then sometimes think of like even future pace of like what's the absolute worst thing could happen? Is it that bad? So like, should you take the chance or should you take the risk? And it's like, well, what, if it's like the flipping Dr. Pepper advert, isn't it like what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
It's like if the worst thing that could happen isn't actually that bad, like should you do it?
But that's interesting, right? Because your mind as well has flipped it. Because a lot of people, when they do this visualization, they will see the worst case scenario, which will freak them out, which will mean they will act differently. So that's how they would then use it, which, look, some people's brains it's good for. I wouldn't recommend it to everyone or anyone. And then lastly, you've got explorative or receptive visualization. Now, this is probably the least known one. It's been used by the likes of like Einstein, Nikola Tesla, Walt Disney. where essentially you're using your brain as a bit of a whiteboard. So let's say you don't know what you want. Let's say you're thinking of a new business idea, or you are, I don't know, working somewhere and you're brainstorming something. You basically can use it to invent, create, and do things like that. So Nikola Tesla created the electric coil in a visualization. And he explains in his like memoirs where he's like, you know, I had this imagery of what it looked like and I would edit it in my mind. So you can use explorative and receptive visualization to basically like create and think bigger. So when I was thinking of like the company, I used that a lot before I knew the outcome of what that would be. So those are the 5 types. So when it comes to starting, I would say creative visualization, process visualization, and outcome are the ones you want to start with. So with process, a very simple thing to do would be to wake up and just visualize your day. Not being like amazing, or just visualize how you want your day to go. So see yourself completing your tasks, eating what you need to eat, going to the gym, all of that. What this does is it will make it 10 times easier for your brain and body to actually just do it. And so often we have our day and we have this like set plan and we have our to-do list, but we don't ever do it. If you can wire that to-do list into your brain, trust me, you'll be so much more productive, so much more focused. Some people, that will be a really good way to start it. Others, try outcome visualization. This is a fun one. If you just ask yourself, if you have a goal or a project that you are working on right now, no matter how small or big it is, sit down for about 7 to 10 minutes, close the eyes, take a few deep breaths, and then ask yourself, what does your life look like as you are achieving this goal and you are literally there? And like I said, when you see the results in advance, you are going to start building the beliefs and wiring that goal into your brain. And that will leave you feeling very motivated. It will leave you feeling very inspired and will, you know, result in action being taken. So those are the 2 I'd start there with. And then creative visualization. Let's say you are experiencing quite an intense emotion. So it might be anger or frustration, or even anxiety. You close your eyes and you mentally rehearse. So, okay, where do you feel that emotion in your body? It might be your stomach, it might be your head, your heart. Then we attach a color, a shape, even like a temperature. Is it cold? Is it warm? Is it like a fiery ball? Is it a cold ice cube? It might even be a character. It could be like a cartoon character. And then with your mind, how are we going to dissolve it? Some people, it just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Some people, they like being a bit more creative. I'm going to melt it. I'm going to pour water on the fire. Again, the brain has no idea. You can be as creative as you want. It likes it. And then slowly you make it the size of a pea until it eventually disappears. And if it's still there, you repeat it again and again. And that will help that emotion in your body not only be felt, but also be released. And the cool thing about creative visualization is you can do it in 40 to 60-second bursts, and it's the most effective thing. Oh, wow. So it doesn't have to be very long at all. 40 seconds, we've all got that. And I still do this.
So do you have to make it go away, though, for it to be effective? Because I've practiced different versions where you don't make it go away, but you give it a hug, or, you know, you accept it in a different way.
Yeah, so again, you can be as creative as you want. So some people, they do want it to go to a size of a pea, and that is what helps them. I think when you are feeling the intensity of it, it's good that the emotion can be felt. That's the important thing. If it's a really underlying emotion, then yes, different type of work needs to be done where it's like you're accepting it, you're hugging it, you are having that type of relationship with it. But again, you get to choose. Like one of my people I met who came to Mental Fitness Live, he was so funny. He was like, it was like this green goblin that then became so small and it just came out my urine. And I was like, great. You know, but you can be creative. Yeah. And everyone's is so different, which is really cool. And like, I use this technique with like some of the top performers and it's so effective. Like it's so, so good. So I'd say those 3 are pretty good to get into. But the key with like anything is repetition. You know, that's how you really start to change things.
So with, for example, like the outcome one, we've used that with clients where we'll say, imagine future you, let's just say 2 years away, because otherwise they've got in their mind, well, that's not realistic if I say 6 months away. So let's just say like you wake up, imagine your day. What do you do? What do you wear? What do you look like? What do you feel like? That is really powerful to then start thinking, okay, that could happen. What do I work back from in terms of an action plan? But you were saying do it repetitively. How often would someone need to take themselves to that day and think about that future for it to be effective?
If it's something you want, then do it every day. Like I think it's just like anything. If you put more reps in, you're going to get more out of it. I'm not saying you need to do it for, you know, like multiple times a day. Like I visualize for an hour and a half a day in the morning, not because like I need to, it's because I love it. And also I have about like 14 things I'm visualizing. So think about it. If you've been like weight training for like 10 years, you're going to lift heavier weights. That is where I'm at. I'm lifting heavier weights because I've been doing it for so long. But when you're starting, yeah, like give yourself those 7 minutes, and in about 2 weeks, you'll really start to feel it. You'll feel that buzz, that motivation. In 4 weeks, you'll start to see it. You'll start to see it in your actions. You'll start to see it in how you react to things. And then in 8 to 12 weeks, it becomes part of your identity a lot more. So that wiring is now part of who you are. So you will show up differently. And so, you know, the question of like, okay, how often do you need to do it? And like, I'd say start if you can 3-4 times a week, and then build it up to every day if you can. Just treat it like you would brushing your teeth. You are just training your mind. And in fact, who was it? Mo Salah, he did an interview like a week ago, and he was like 90% of his goals have happened because he has just visualized. But he said, out of everything I've done, the hardest thing to do is the 15 minutes of mind training every day. The 15 minutes of it. Even he finds it hard. It is hard. Don't assume it's going to be easy. It is a skill that you will get better at. But
so what makes it so difficult though?
Well, I honestly, it's the actual consistency of it, because most of us are already experts at visualizing, but we visualize the worst that's going to happen. We visualize us not getting the goal or us being super anxious. That's what we're visualizing all the time. And I think like the cool thing is, the actual skill of mental rehearsal is very innate within us. We are very imaginative beings. Thing is, we haven't used it for a while when we get to adulthood, because we just stop using that muscle. So to get someone into it, it's pretty easy. The key is seeing it as a skill, and you're doing it purposefully. Because then some people say to me like, oh, but isn't it just a bit like daydreaming? And I'm like, no, because daydreaming is like unintentional visualizing. You're not actually showing your brain, this is what I want, and prompting it. Whereas when you sit down, you take those few breaths, you calm the brain, and then you do the visualization. That's when you're actually...
And you're being super intentional as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And is it all in your mind, or do you write or draw or do anything creative alongside, or is it just purely mind work?
You can. So if people are a little bit, don't have the clarity of like what they want, etc., then yeah, writing your goal down and like that can help your brain to just make it a bit more clearer. And even like drawing, like so on my background, like this is my phone background, right? I have a big goal this year to do like a massive event, and I do create sometimes the photos or drawings just to like prime my brain again. If I can see it, it's just clearer. And one thing I will say is 2% of the population have something called aphantasia, which means that if I were to say like, oh, think of a lemon, they actually like can't think of it. It just doesn't form in their brain. The cool thing is like visualization can still be effective for them, because what's key about the visualization is the emotion. It's the feeling that you're creating as part of it. So even if the images aren't totally clear, if they focus on the feeling, they're still going to change the chemistry and the biology of their body, but it's just going to be a bit of a different experience for them, but it's definitely possible.
And if somebody is struggling, my personal experience is it's almost like tip of the tongue syndrome when I'm visualizing. It's like it's blurry or it's in the background. Whereas if I draw or write, I feel like I have the same experience, but it feels more concrete, like I can actually process it. Is that messing with the process? Or?
No, so I would just write and draw and then do it, because the thing about when you've closed your eyes and doing it, you are limiting your senses, right? Some people say to me like, oh, can I do a walking visualization? I'm like, fine, but it's not going to be like as effective. When you close your eyes and you actually take away the senses, so no writing, no stimulation, that's when you're really going to rewire it, because you're focused on that one thing. And a lot of people say, they're like, oh, but Maya, like, I started thinking about this one thing and then I realized I wanted this thing. And then this goal came up. And I'm like, if that's what's happening in your brain now, that means it's also happening in reality, that you're chasing so many different goals and you then aren't going to get one because we don't have that level of focus. So yeah, you've got to discipline the mind first so you can discipline in real life as well.
Yeah. And would you say that there are kind of beginner levels of writing might give you a start, and then you can progress once you're better at clarifying your thoughts.
Yeah.
You can then move into just visualizing in your mind.
Yeah, for sure. And that's like how I started as well. Whereas like now, it's like second nature to me. And also, like, even with the creative visualization, for example, I used to draw out what my emotions were looking like and things like that. Whereas now, if I'm, I don't know, backstage somewhere, or even, let's say I'm nervous for something, my brain has done it so many times that it's like quite automatic, which is cool. Like, you've trained it literally to help you manage something in the moment, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, I love that.
No, I really love it. I mean, I've coming back to the manifestation and everything else that goes with it. What is like one thing that you'd love to like cut the BS on when it comes to I'm not gonna actually get to say visualization today. I'm like, there we go, got it. But yeah, like what is the thing that you'd want to like really cut the bullshit with? Because that's very much our slogan, and every time we ask guests, we do get something different, because you're the most passionate about what you do, and you probably hear these conflicting things all the time.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, it is not just about some like woo-woo manifestation thing. It is not. And why is it then that the top neuroscientists and the top athletes and the top CEOs are using it? Would we ever say Michael Phelps manifested 28 golden medals? Would we ever say that he just thought it and it came true? No. He's the best example of someone who used visualization as that training tool to get him where he is. And you watch any of his interviews, he will say the same thing. He will literally say, I started visualizing at a very young age, and what it did is it gave me that edge compared to everyone else. Now, honestly, another thing I'm going to cut the BS on is it's not going to be for everyone. And that's cool. Mental fitness is such an individual journey. If you go to the gym, I bet all three of us do something very different in the gym. Good. We should be. We are different people, different minds, etc. In the same way, all I'm going to say is try it. Try it for a little while, and don't put it down before you experience it. I think I see so many people just being like, oh no, here's another one of those things. Just try it. Why wouldn't you give yourself that opportunity?
To Jamie's point earlier, try it more than once.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, no, for sure. Well, short term, you're going to feel something different, which is great. I always say, like, you'll change your day by doing like one visualization, but if you want to change your life, you've got to actually invest in it. And then I think the other thing is, like, I just think there's so much talk around mental health now, and I'm kind of sick of it. Like, stop talking about it and do something about it. Like, do we ever sit on a sofa and talk about how important physical fitness is? We never really do that, because everyone kind of knows. Like, we're all taking action towards it. Whereas with mental health, it feels like we're stuck in this period of like, okay, yeah, we need to talk about our anxiety, or we need to talk about that. And it's great. And I think it has made some serious progress in our society, but we've stopped there. Now it's like, okay, what do we need to do? That's not just going on antidepressants. That's not just like taking psychedelics. It's like, what about the power of your own mind? What can you do? How can you take your brain to the gym? And so I was on this panel, and it was like the importance of mental health. And the first question I got was like, why is mental health important? And I was like, I'm not even going to reply anymore. Like, why is that a question? Why is that still a question? Would we ever say, why is physical fitness important? It's your mind is half your health. Treat it like that. If anything, it's more important.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Yeah,
like it's in charge of everything you do. And so I get quite riled up about it, because I'm just like, I just think we need to be more action orientated in an empowering way. It doesn't have to be like a massive chore. It's just the small things you do very often. And I think a lot of people think you have to like just, I don't know, do hours and hours a day, but you don't.
It's really the same message as what we say about physical fitness. It's small changes that you do consistently add up to a complete shift.
Yeah, and I don't want it to be a chore. Like, I look forward to my visualizations. I love them, because it's like, I know I'm doing good for me, but I also feel good. And so, you don't want it to be like, oh, I have to do this. You want it to integrate it into your life where you are grateful for it and you appreciate it. And that's, I think, where that sweet spot of like, how can you maintain something as well? You give it the meaning you need to give it.
It's a really empowering message, and I'm really excited now. So if people want to find out more about implementing it or your events where they can learn more, where would they go?
Yeah, so So like I mentioned, I like making mental fitness very physical. So every month I host Mental Fitness Live in London. And there, not only do you, dive deeper into the 5 types of visualization, but I also guide 2 of them. And you know what's the coolest thing? It's the people. Like, it's so cool to get 100 people every time in the room. And think about it, you're all there because you're like, I want to train my mind. It's just really nice. And we see that in the fitness world and CrossFit Games and all of this, but you never really see it in a mental fitness
so
state.
True.
Yeah, and you do in so a lot of people when they come, they expect these yoga mats and candles and very quiet. I make my events like clubs. They are like rap music, it's loud, it's lights, because I'm like, this should be fun, and it is fun. And so Mental Fitness Alive is one aspect of it. And then also have recordings and then an online platform where people can have the on-demand visualizations with the guidance, as well as just meeting the community. And then that to me is important because, when you can talk to other people and learn from other people, it's really fun. And then, just Maya Mental Fitness on, what am I on? Instagram, which is always fun because I think a really big part of my message is that I don't have all my stuff together. And I'm not meant to. I'm also on this journey, and everything I'm learning on the way, I will also share. And actually something really recently happened where someone told me that it was the founder of Reebok, and he was like, I basically asked him, I was like, how did you make such $1 billion company? He was like, truthfully, I just stayed humble and remembered that I'm just still a shoemaker. And that if I just keep getting better at my craft, it will go far. And what it's inspired me to do is go back to my first ever visualization teacher that I went to meet after I came out of hospital. And I'm going to go back and train with her because it's been 10 years now. Let's go see what else I can learn. Let me keep getting better at what I do so that then I can share it with other people as well. I think sometimes it's easy to just think you know it all, but no, I've got so much more to learn, but I think it's a good time to do it, I guess.
Amazing. So your website is?
So the company's Remap Mental Fitness. So that's just I'll put the link somewhere. Just type in Remap Mental Fitness and it will come up. And then my personal website is just raichoora.com.
We'll put the links underneath the podcast as well, so people
sounds
can
good.
Have a little stalk and check you out. I love it. Thank you so much for coming in today. It's been an absolutely fascinating episode. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.